Jai Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Varnam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Gaur Kamanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading today from I'm skipping a part, right? I also forget that part. That's one of my favorite verses. Irrevocably established. We can sing together. Nainam namaskritya narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamadirya. Before sight, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very means of conquest. We should offer obeisances to Godhead, Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the most human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prishu Bhadeshu Nityam Bhagavata Vasevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the Supreme Person, whose praise of transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, so we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 15, Description of the Kingdom of God. And we'll read from text 37 to 50. And then we'll come back and read the purport for text 43. So this is the big event that caused so much havoc in the world when we look at Hiranyakashipu and Shishupal and what was the other ones escaping me? 3 times he appeared. There was one other demon I'm forgetting, but Kamsa. So all kinds of havoc was created by these 3 personalities, and this is the origin of their story. Krishna got a little spunky. He wanted to have a little wrestling. He wanted to have a little entertainment. So he arranged this pastime for Jai and Vijay to take birth in the material world so he could have someone to fight with. Krishna interacts with his devotees. He teaches others by interacting with his devotees. So this was the seminal event, you can say, when, well, it'll come up in the next verses. But anyway, this was talking about the sages coming to Vaikuntha and seeing Narayan, and we'll talk about the transformation that they had upon having that darshan. So we'll take turns reading the translations. Everyone have microphones spread around. Okay.
At that very moment, the Lord, who is called Padmanabha, because of the lotus grown from his navel, and who is the delight of the righteous, learned about the insult offered by his own servants to the saints. Accompanied by his spouse, the goddess of fortune, he went to the spot on those very feet sought for by recluses and great sages.
The sages headed by Shaunaka Rishi saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who was formerly visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance, had now actually become visible to their eyes. As soon as he came forward, accompanied by his own associates, bearing all paraphernalia, such as an umbrella and chamra fan, the white bunches of hair moved very gently, like 2 swans, and due to their favorable breeze, the pearls garlanding the umbrella also moved, like drops of nectar falling from the white moon, or ice melting due to a gust of wind.
The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. His auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction, and his affectionate smiling and glancing touch the core of the heart. The Lord's beautiful bodily color is blackish, and his broad chest is the resting place of the goddess of fortune, who glorifies the entire spiritual world, the summit of all heavenly planets. Thus it has appeared that the Lord was personally spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world.
He was adorned with a girdle that shone brightly on a yellow cloth covering his large hips, and he wore a garland of fresh flowers, which was distinguished by humming bees. His lovely wrists were graced with bracelets, and he rested one of his hands on the shoulder of Garuda, his carrier, and twirled a lotus with another hand.
His countenance was distinguished by cheeks that enhanced the beauty of his alligator-shaped pendants, which outshone lightning. His nose was prominent, and his head was covered with a gem-studded crown. A charming necklace hung between his stout arms, and his neck was adorned with a gem known by the name Kaustubha.
The exquisite beauty of Narayana, being many times magnified by the intelligence of his devotees, was so attractive that it defeated the pride of the goddess of fortune in being the most beautiful. My dear demigods, the Lord who thus manifested himself is worshipped by me, by Lord Shiva, and by all of you. The sages regarded him as the unshaded eyes, and joyously bowed their heads at his lotus feet.
When the breeze carrying the aroma of Tulasi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead entered the nostrils of the sages, they experienced and changed both in the body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding.
The Lord's beautiful face appeared to them like the inside of a blue lotus, and the Lord's smile appeared to be a blossoming jasmine flower. After seeing the face of the Lord, the sages were fully satisfied, and when they wanted to see him further, they looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus, they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again, and so they finally achieved meditation on the Lord's personal feature.
This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga process, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary but factual, as proved by great yogis. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievement, but for others these achievements are not possible in full perfection.
The Kumara said, "O dear Lord, you are not manifested to rascals, even though you are seated within the heart of everyone. But as far as we are concerned, we see you face to face, although you are limited. The statements we have heard about you from our father Brahma through the ears have now been actually realized by your kind opinions.
We know that you are the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, who manifests his transcendental form in the uncontaminated mode of pure goodness. This transcendental, eternal form of your personality can be understood only by your mercy, through unflinching devotional service, by great sages whose hearts have been purified in the devotional way.
Persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are engaged in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and worth hearing. Such persons do not care even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benedictions, like the material happiness of the heavenly kingdom.
O Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish condition of life, just as long as our hearts and minds are always engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Our words are made beautiful by speaking of your activities, just as tulsi leaves are beautified when offered onto your lotus feet, and as long as our ears are always filled with the chanting of your transcendental qualities.
O Lord, we therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your eternal form as the personality of Godhead, which you have so kindly manifested before us. Your supreme eternal form cannot be seen by unfortunate, less intelligent persons. but we are so much satisfied in our mind and vision to see it.
Joy. So we'll read text 43, translation and purport, and in Sanskrit. If I can get the meter. Asyaravinda nayanas, that's not right. Tasyaravinda nayanasya padaravinda. Kinjaka mishra tulasi makaranda vayu. Antagata svavivarena chakaratesham. Shanshobhamaksharajusamam apichittatanvo. Tasyaravinda nayanasya pataravinda. Kinjaka mishra tulasi makaranda vayu. Antagata svavivarena chakaratesham. Shankshavamaksharajusam apichittatanvo. Tasyaravinda nayanasya padaravinda. Kinjaka mishra tulasi makaranda vayu. Antagata svavivarena chakaratesham. Shankshavamaksharajusam apichittatanvo. Tasyaravinda nayanasya padaravinda. Kinjaka mishra tulasi makaranda vayu. Antagata svavivarena chakaratesham. Shankshavamaksharajusam apichittatanvo. Read the word for word together. Tasya of him, Arvinda Nayanasya, of the lotus eyed Lord, Padaravinda, with the lotus feet, Kinjaka, with the toes, Mishra, mixed, Tulasi, the tulsi leaves, Makaranda, fragrance, Vayu, breeze, Andagata, entered within, Swavivarena, through their nostrils, Chakara, made, Tesham, of the Kumars, Shankshobha, agitation for change, Akshara, Jusam, attached to the impersonal Brahman realization, Api, even though, Chitta Tanvo, in both mind and body. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead entered the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change both in body and mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. So let's read the purport.
It appears from this verse that the four Kumaras were impersonalists or protagonists of the philosophy of monism. becoming one with the Lord. But as soon as they saw the Lord's features, their minds changed. In other words, the impersonalist who feels transcendental pleasure in striving to become one with the Lord is defeated when he sees the beautiful transcendental features of the Lord. Because of the fragrance of his lotus feet, carried by the air and mixed with the aroma of Tulasi, their minds changed. Instead of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, they thought it was wise to become devotees. Becoming a servitor of the lotus feet of the Lord is better than becoming one.
So I ask, please beg to get your blessings that I may say something pleasing to the Lord and uplifting to the heart. So this is a very famous verse. The word for word, it's got Shankshobam, agitation for change. So this impersonal understanding, the Brahmajyoti, we talked about this before. You can, one way to envision this, or at least one way that I envision it, is years ago I used to watch movies and whatnot, and there's Star Wars was a big movie. Not only a movie, it's like a cultural phenomenon, some people. And they talk about the force, may the force be with you, right? And there's good and bad and dark force and the good force and all that. But that force, that energy that permeates every atom, permeates all of existence, it's real. This is this impersonal feature of the Lord. You think about it, there actually is nothing material. Every atom, every energy comes from Krishna, comes from the Supreme. So everything has a spiritual birth or origin in spiritual energy. It appears to be material when we forget the Lord, and then it acts as material energy. So this force, this impersonal Brahmajyoti, is simply the effulgence of Krishna. But many people are attracted to that because there's so much suffering. A lot of Buddhist philosophy called nihilists, it's just give up everything and I won't suffer anymore. And so they're attracted to this impersonal realization of, let me just merge into this force. Let me just merge into this existence. And they were realized, the four Kumaras were situated in that understanding. They had no material attachments. You could say they're pure spiritual souls in a sense. And so they were really struck when they smelled these tulsi leaves and saw the Lord. They felt the sensation of Shankshobam, agitation for change. They felt something in their heart stirred, and they said, well, we're attracted to this fragrance and the sight that we're seeing. So how can we be attracted to something? We have no material desires. We're completely perfectly situated. So why are we being pulled to something? If you're attracted to something, it means there's something there that you're lacking, and I need that thing. And so then they could understand, oh, our realization's not absolute, that we need to change our understanding a little bit and become devotees. There's a nice lecture that Srila Prabhupada gives, and the title of it, when he would give lectures, devotees would transcribe, put them on tapes, and then they would title each one. And then now they don't have cassette tapes anymore, it's all MP3s, but the tape ministry was a huge thing because that's how you could listen to Prabhupada's lectures. And so one lecture he gave, he talked about why try to become God? It's better to be greater than God. And so then they would come up with these catchy titles to make people want to listen to these tapes. How do you become greater than God? And so it's described in the verse before this, text 42. So before I jump ahead, so this impersonal conception is a little bit like trying to become God. You're trying to merge in, and there's a lot of philosophy, there's a lot of spiritual schools of thought, and that's what they teach, that actually we're all one, right? We're all God, we've just forgotten. And it's not that they're a complete illusion for propagating that philosophy, because on one level it's true, we are all God. If you take a cup and go to the ocean and pull out a cup of water and look in under a microscope, it's got certain makeup. And the whole ocean has the same makeup. So the Satchidananda, the essence of who we are, Satchidananda. Sat, we're eternal. Chit, we're full of knowledge. And Ananda, we're blissful. That makeup, that you could call it the DNA in a sense, of the living entity is, as it says in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Vigraha is like the form. So the form of God, his essence, is Satchidananda. Well, our soul is Satchidananda. So yes, we are divine beings. We are God. The difference is, if you take a cup of water and you throw it on the city of Los Angeles, not much is going to happen. But if a tsunami comes and hits Los Angeles, it's going to be a different story. And so, yes, in quality, we're the same as God, but in quantity, we're not. We're minute, we're tiny, we're infinitesimal. And so anyway, this idea of merging into this Brahmajyoti or becoming one with God, it's not possible, first of all, any more than a mother gives birth to a child. The child can't go back into the womb of the mother. It doesn't happen. It's not possible. So we're individual souls. We'll always be individual souls. We can't merge with God. We can try to, we can pretend to, but eventually we're going to experience what the Kumaras did. We're going to be merged into this force, and we're going to be very blissful, although you can't actually be blissful when you are bliss. You can't exchange with it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So it's a temporary realization, and eventually we'll become attracted to the Lord and have to engage in some devotional service. So so back to this topic of becoming God or becoming greater than God, which would you want to do? And of course, out of humility, we don't tend to think of ourselves, well, I don't want to be greater than God. But if we look at text 42, there's a statement in the translation. It says, the exquisite beauty of Narayan, being many times magnified by the intelligence of his devotees. So the idea of being, it's not that we desire to be greater than God, but what happens is there becomes I can find it here when I read something, kind of a competition. I was just listening on the way down here, a lecture that Srila Prabhupada was giving of how Krishna is full, he's satisfied, he doesn't have desires to fulfill. And yet you read so many different pastimes. He had 16,108 wives, and he did all these activities with the cowherd boys. So he's looking to fulfill others' desires. He's playing with his friends, and sometimes he wins, and sometimes he loses, and the loser has to carry the other person on their back. And so Krishna has to carry someone on his back because he was on the losing side. Well, how can God lose? But the idea, the point is that Krishna takes pleasure in satisfying the desires of his devotees. Oh my gosh, don't tell me I lost it. Well, I had it marked up to read, but I'll just try to do it from memory. So basically, this idea of being many times magnified by the intelligence of devotees is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Adi Lila. I think it's chapter 4, text 192, and there's 3 or 4 verses, 192, 93, and 94. And it's described that Krishna's beauty, when the gopis see Krishna's beauty, they become more beautiful. Like their face lights up. It's just like when you see someone you really like, you light up. You're happy to see them. And so then they become more beautiful. And then Krishna sees their beauty increase, and his beauty increases. And so then they see his increased beauty, and then their beauty increases. And so this is this statement about the exquisite beauty of Narayan being many times magnified by the intelligence of devotees. Another way of saying the same thing. When the devotee sees how wonderful Krishna is, it makes him so happy. And when Krishna sees the devotees become happy, he becomes more wonderful and more happy and more effulgent and so on. And this just keeps going. Prabhupada used to use the term, he used it not infrequently. He would say there's perfect, and perfect is there anything above perfect? Well, no, but there is. There's perfect, there's more perfect, and there's most perfect. And when you stop and think about it, it's a mind bender, because wait a minute, perfect means you can't be more than perfect. Perfect is 100%, you know? But this is Krishna's math, that there's, yes, he's exquisite beauty, there's no more beauty, but then he becomes more beautiful, and then his devotees become more beautiful. So this exchange we can see in terms of the point Prabhupada is making is, why try to merge and become God when you can become greater than God? And he would give the example of Arjuna on the chariot, telling Krishna what to do. Krishna's the chariot driver. Krishna, go left, go right, do this. Krishna became the servant of Arjuna to help him to win this battle. And of course, Arjuna understood that this battle is happening due to Krishna. It's not me, it's not my prowess. But the point is that Krishna likes to take the role because his devotees are so dear to him. He likes to take the role of their servant, and he likes to give them pleasure, and he likes to reciprocate them and put himself subservient to them. I mean, this month is a beautiful time to meditate on this phenomena with Lord Damodar. During the month of Kartik, we offer a candle to Damodar. And why do we do that? Of course, we're trying to offer him our heart and our love, but we're recognizing the fact that Krishna takes great pleasure in being tied up by Yashoda, because he's feeling the love. He's feeling her love. She wants to correct him. She wants him not to be a naughty child, to be a good child. And out of her love, she's saying, no, 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 you can't do that. And he thrives off that love of his devotees. And so it's a very wonderful thing that the topmost person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will place himself in a subordinate position to his devotee so he can feel that love. And he does it with Mother Yashoda, he does it with his cowherd boyfriends, he does it with his girlfriends, he does it with Nanda Maharaj. He puts your shoes on his head and brings them to Nanda. Can you imagine God putting your shoes on his head? It's like we would never want to tolerate that, you know. There's a famous story about the day Krishna had a headache. You probably heard this story, and he's asking someone, I think Narada Muni, I think it was Narada Muni. He said, well, what can we do to relieve this headache? He said, well, I need the dust from the feet of my devotee. If I put that on my head, my headache will go away. So I think it was Narada Muni. I could be wrong, but he went out to collect this dust, and nobody would give him this dust. He went to all the pious brahmanas and elevated personalities, and if I give you the dust of my feet on Krishna's head, I'll go to hell. I can't do that. And so, long story short, he went to a lot of different places and persons. He ends up in Braj. He goes to the gopis. How's Krishna doing? Well, he's got a headache. Oh no. Well, how can we help him? Well, he wants the dust from the feet of his devotees. And they happily just, okay, here, take the dust. And Narada Muni said, well, aren't you concerned you'll go to hell or get some reaction? He said, hell, who cares? You know, if it relieves Krishna's headache, I don't care if I go to hell. As long as he's happy, I'm happy. And so this was basically a kind of a little bit of a ruse, not a ruse, but Krishna was teaching Narada Muni how the gopis are so exalted. They don't care about their own happiness. They just care about Krishna's pleasure. So this is the point of this impersonal Brahman, becoming God. There's not nearly so much satisfaction as enjoying an exchange with God. If you think about it, in this world, everyone wants to be loved, wants to love and be loved. We all want enjoyment. We're naturally enjoyment-seeking living entities. That's our nature. And the person who can reciprocate more fully than anyone else is God. So if you want to experience love, then the best place to do it is to exchange that love with God, because no one else can love you in the same way. If they do, eventually it'll be broken. At the time of death, or some disagreement will come, and this relationship will be severed. It'll be very painful. But with God, it's eternal. So another point here that we touched on, how Krishna gives himself to his devotees so fully. Sort of two concepts here. I'm going to try to merge them together. In text 39, in the purport, it talks about offenses to devotees, aparads, and the danger and how destructive they are. I was going to bring a clip to play. I couldn't find a good one. I saw one years ago, but basically it's Vaishnava aparad is considered a mad elephant offense, because it can just destroy the garden. Or we're trying to cultivate this creeper that can grow up to the spiritual world and take us with it. And so you picture a garden. Up in Boyd's, before I moved in here, even still, we have a little bit of a garden, and so it's nice to try to grow things, grow flowers for Krishna, and fruits, vegetables, and things. And when you have a garden, to maintain a garden, if any of you have ever done it, takes a lot of effort. Most of your effort, unfortunately, I don't know, it just seems wrong to me that the way nature is designed is weeds grow easier than good things. The bad plants grow easier than the good plants. It's just like they grow so fast and furious, and the good ones are slowly. And I'm like, why don't they should be the same? Why is or the good ones should grow faster or something? So anyway, as a gardener, most of your effort is spent pulling out weeds and feeding the soil and making everything nice and healthy. And so the last thing you want is some raccoon or some critter or gopher to come in and chew up your vegetables, or what to speak of a mad elephant come in and the whole yard is destroyed. And there's the video I was going to show. You can just picture a little village and an elephant come in and basically in 35 seconds destroys the whole village because he's in a mood. And so this is the destructive power of offenses. And if we think of offenses, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, as obvious, but the term aparad, the Vaishnava aparad, we say that's an offense against devotees. But there's also holy name, there's offense against the holy name. There's different kinds of offenses. We talk about them in the 10 offenses. But they're all aparads, aparad this, aparad that. So aparad, basically, if you separate Radha and Apa, an aparad is something against Radha. Basically, our existence is to help Srimati Radharani give pleasure to Krishna. That's our identity. So if we're not doing that, we're against Radharani, or we're not helping her, then that falls into this category of offense, because our constitutional position is to help her. And so, there's mad elephants. My understanding is they become crazy like this at certain times when they're mating, and their senses are out of control. And so this offense is very, very destructive. And there's a famous story I think we talked about where Devaprastha Muni, Ambarish Maharaj and Devaprastha Muni, this is a classic example given of offenses, but it also talks about the depth of which Krishna gives himself to his devotees, which is the part I like. And Ambarish didn't actually do anything wrong. He was fasting, and there was a certain time to break his fast, and right when he was about to break it, Devaprastha Muni shows up. I think he had his 10,000 disciples with him, and in his customary in Vedic culture, somebody comes, a guest, invited or uninvited, then you should feed them. And so, and in fact, I think Devaprastha Muni was actually hungry and asked, yes, that's very nice, and Ambarish offered, but then he said, I have to go and bathe first, and go to the river and bathe, then we'll come back and we'll honor this food that this prasad that you're prepared for us. And so while he was gone was the time when Ambarish had to break his fast. And in order to get the benefits of the fasting, you have to break it at a certain time. If you don't break it at the right time, the benefit isn't really there. So he was perplexed what to do, because he can't eat before his guests. That's an offense. But if he doesn't break his fast, that's also offense of another kind. So he consulted some wise Brahmins said what to do. He said, well, just drink some water. Because by drinking water, when you drink water, you're eating, but you're not eating. It's like you're not really breaking the fast because it's just water, but you are breaking the fast because it's water. It's like it's eating very mildly. You're not eating solid food, but you're taking something in your body. So technically, you've broken the fast, and so that's a good thing. But you're not really eating, so you're not offending your guests because it's just water. So he said, okay, so he drank some water. And Devaprastha Muni could perceive, oh, he took something. So he came back, he was very angry. Long story, he became very, very angry. Ambarish was such an exalted devotee that Krishna had given his Sudarshan Chakra as Ambarish's personal bodyguard. And so when Devaprastha Muni got upset, immediately he was chased by this Sudarshan Chakra. And long story. He goes all over the universe, all over the world, goes to Indra, goes to Lord Brahma, goes to Lord Shiva. He's trying to get help from whoever he can. Nobody can help him. This is Sudarshan Chakra. I can't help you. Finally, he gets to Vishnu. He says, please, this is your chakra, so you can retract it. And you're famous for being very merciful, so please give me some mercy. He said, I don't have any mercy. And Ambarish said, well, it's not possible. You're famous. Everybody knows you're full of mercy. You're the most merciful. And he said, no, actually, I try. My devotees serve me so nicely. I'm always trying to give them something. They won't accept anything from me. They just want to love me, and they don't want anything from me. I can't give them anything. And it's really, really painful for me because they serve me so nicely. I have to give them something to reciprocate. He said, so I finally found something my devotees would accept. So I gave them that, and they were happy. And what is that thing he gave them? Was his heart. He said, I give my devotees heart, they'll accept that, they're very happy. So therefore, I've given, all my mercy resides in my heart. I've given my heart to my devotees, so I don't have it. If you want that mercy, you have to go to them because they possess it. So this is how fully Krishna reciprocates. And so finally he went to Ambarish and apologized, and Ambarish basically said, I don't know why you're apologizing. You didn't do anything wrong, you didn't offend me. I can't, how can I forgive you when you haven't done anything? This is the mood of a devotee, he doesn't see the offense. So everybody was happy in the end, but the point is how fully Krishna gives himself. And there's another story I think I've told about Bhishma. We could go on and on. So this point is that Krishna very much takes pleasure in becoming subservient and reciprocating with his devotees and fulfilling their desires. And so, and we can avoid the mad elephant offense is important. And we can try to meditate and understand how we can approach the Lord and reciprocate with him and what he's given us. So those were some of the highlights from these verses. There were a lot of verses there just about the beauty of the Lord and how it transformed the Kumaras. And we don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to just maybe ask a question of anyone. This Bhagavatam is full of these amazing pastimes and these amazing statements. So does anyone have any questions, either about anything we read or anything I said, or just any doubts or anything you find particularly attractive about Krishna consciousness, or any doubts as to something that is kind of holding you back, thinking, well, I don't know how this can be true. This sounds like a pretty wild statement. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking about, to me, like talking about being limited. Like I feel like something that is being said sounds very limiting, like saying, we are talking about Paramatma, right? Mm-hmm. And then saying that we are, like, I feel like we already are one with God, so that the idea that we're not is just a product of false ego. And like sometimes I feel like things are framed, the way things are said in such a way, to me I perceive it like it's like preaching to be attached to false ego. Whenever like Krishna is everything. He's our Paramatma, he's the self, he's everything we see, he's everywhere. So the idea that we aren't already that, we aren't already one with that, it doesn't make sense to me. It just feels like if it's referring to our false ego of thinking that like about our thoughts, I get it, but like on our actual nature, I feel like that's all there is just that one. So like to me, it doesn't sound right.
So what doesn't sound right is the idea that we're not one with God, that we're separate from him.
So saying that we want to become one with God wouldn't make sense because we already are. We just don't know we are because we're caught in illusion and false ego. That's how I see it. I'm not. So sometimes I hear certain things and it catches me off. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. That's kind of where my
no, it's true. I think the reason you're feeling that way is because your spiritual vision is evolved, advanced to the point where you see that we are connected to God. To say that we're not is illusion. We are one with God. But again, we're not God. We are one with God in quality. And we're part of him. We can't be separate. It's impossible to be separate from God because our very existence is part of him. So there is no separation. We are one with God. Where we're not one with God, or where there's a distinction or difference, is back to the tsunami, right? In quantity, we're not God. If we get cold, if we get sick, we can't get out of bed and function. Well, God doesn't have those limitations. So in quality of Satchidananda, who we are, identity, spiritual, we're eternal. Can't be cut, can't be burned, can't be killed. Like, yes, we are 100% made of God's substance, but we're not a tsunami. We're a cup of water. We're,
My question is this: was what to say of like the samadhi experiences described, where people like they forget their body, they don't even have a body, and they just expand and they become the whole universe, and they as their body, and then they come back and they're like, oh hi, like what to say of these things?
well, we can experience the soul is described as 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. And you can't actually measure it with any instruments, but it's infinitesimal. But it can expand. In the body of an elephant, it's conscious of its toe and its trunk and everything. In our body, I'm conscious of my toe, but I'm not as big as an elephant. So my consciousness expands this far. You can be the soul of Mother Bhumi, who's Earth, and your consciousness covers the whole Earth. Or if you're Lord Brahma, your consciousness covers the whole universe, because that's your role. You're still actually the size of the 1/10,000th the tip of a hair, but the conscious awareness can grow. So yeah, we can experience things, but we're still limited. Again, that yogi who can do that, and then he comes back, and then if he stubs his toe, he feels some pain. Well, God doesn't feel pain. Like, we're still limited, but our consciousness can expand in some circumstances to experience more of God's creation. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I just struggle still with wanting to believe in any sort of limitation at all. Like anytime I feel like I need to believe something that limits me, it's like it like sends off red flags everywhere inside of my mind. That's just where I'm at.
Well, spiritually, there is no limitation. So that's part of why you're comfortable with that, because we are unlimited. But the fact is that we're confined, as unlimited as the soul may be. Right now, we're forced to be contained within this space of 5 feet tall and 2 arms and 2 legs. And so if I'm unlimited, why am I forced to be in this body that is limiting me? So in that sense, there's proof that we're not 100% unlimited. Because if we were, we wouldn't be forced to be confined to this material body and get sick if we get a flu or something else. So the fact that limits can be imposed upon us means, on one level, we're not 100% unlimited. There are limits that are imposed on us. But still, the soul is unlimited, so you can, that's why death is so troubling for us, because it's unnatural. The soul's eternal. So the concept of death is like, I can't compute. It doesn't work, and that's why we're bothered by it so much, because it's like, no, how is this possible? Because the soul can't die. Yes. You have a microphone? No, that was my point.
It's just that what you were just saying made me think, oh yeah, the soul is unlimited, but it's also dependent. It's dependent on Krishna, whereas Krishna is totally independent. Yeah. So it's like even in our unlimitedness, we're still under his will. We're in alignment with his will, following his will, serving his will. So he allows for us to become whatever it is that our soul desires, which is unlimited, but it's under his in alignment with his will, not our own personal selfish motives. That's
a really good point. We are dependent. And it gets to the core of our, we don't like that. We don't like to be dependent. And that's our disease. That's why we're in the material world, is because we have this envy, and we want to be God. We want to be independent, but we are dependent. But when you do, and it's a really good point, that when you move a wave of the ocean, when you move with the ocean, like a wave is just a part of the ocean, but when the wave is moving with the ocean, it's very powerful. And so when you move with the will of God, you're in alignment with Him, then yes, you can experience this unlimitedness. But yeah, we are dependent. So that's a really good point. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, thank you. I was nervous to ask these questions, but I just decided not for it.
No, you should ask these. These are good. No, they're good questions to ask, and I'm glad you did because it's important. We have to look at our doubts and say, well, what is going on here? This doesn't make sense to me. Prabhupada liked that very much. So I'm hitting 8:30, and I have one hand up. So I don't know if my time is. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to mention also. Anyway, there's different bodies also that we have. So we have the gross body and we have the subtle body. And sometimes some mistakes and they can actually leave their gross body, but they're still in their subtle body. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But the point being is that the more you read, the more knowledge, the more you understand.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's in there in Prabhupada's books are great detail. But yeah, and we do, and that adds a whole layer of complexity because we have the physical body and its limitations, and we've got the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego. It blew my mind the first time I read Bhagavad Gita and started to, I can't say I fully understand it, but when I started to see how, okay, there's earth, air, fire, water, ether, material body, that seems straightforward. Then there's mind, intelligence, and ego, false ego. Those are subtle bodies that we carry, but they're material. I'm like, wait a minute, whoa. Mind, intelligence, false ego. First of all, there's three different things, not just mind. You know, what's the difference between intelligence and mind and false ego? But all three of those are different bodies that we carry from life to life. And they're all material. It's like, whoa, you know, and then beyond that is the soul, which is transcendental. And so that was like an eye opener that there's this, and we can see these different voices. Sometimes it's, you feel psychotic. You're trying to make a decision, and there's a voice telling you to do this, another one telling you to do that. And the mind is saying this, the false ego is saying that, and intelligence is saying this. And it's like, what's going on here? And so it can get a little confusing, which is why we need the Shastras and we need spiritual persons to be able to cut through and say, well, and that's what Arjuna did. He said, well, wait a minute, I can't fight this. This doesn't make sense. And Krishna would cut through and say, well, that's on this level. That's on this level. You need to look at it from this level. So that's a really good point. Thank you for that. Okay, so I guess I'll stop there because we've gone over our time. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for asking your questions.
Mahaprasad.
Govinde,